Welcome back, everyone, to the Cart Barn Podcast. I'm Chris Lemley and Gregg Dewalt. We appreciate you tuning in this week. Gregg, what's going on in the game of golf?
If you monitor the PGA Tour, it was a good week for a couple of our Alabama guys. Nick Dunlap seemed to get his game back on track at the John Deere Classic. Finished T11, I think. Had a really good round the last day to
Yeah, he did.
make a charge up the leaderboard. Ardmore's Lee Hodges, top 25. Played well. Advanced to the Scottish Open this week. And kind of a segue into this week's guest, Fatima Cano, not a household name in Alabama, but she's a former Troy golfer and she's based in Birmingham. She picked up a fifth place finish in the Ladies European Tour, so it was a good weekend for those guys and gals. And this week's guest, we've got Troy men's golf head coach Clay Bounds, and they're coming off a phenomenal season. Made it to the NCAA championship out in California, so it was a good weekend for them. And Clay's got a lot of good things to say about Troy's program getting back to the national tournament.
Yeah, it was a great interview, and look forward to sharing that with everyone this week. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode of the Cart Barn Podcast. Welcome back to the Cart Barn Podcast. We're glad to have Clay Bounds, the head golf coach at Troy, joining us. Clay, welcome to the Cart Barn.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Excited to be on here. Chris, good to meet you. Greg, good to meet you guys, and just ready to talk about Troy golf.
Yeah, we're based up here in North Alabama, so we don't get down to Lower Alabama a whole lot.
Oh yeah, well, you need to come see us. Check out our facility.
Yeah. So you guys are coming off one of the best seasons in Troy golf in recent history, and back when I played at the University of North Alabama, Troy was one of the top dogs in Division II. So just take us through this season. You guys made it all the way to the NCAA Men's Championship out at La Costa. So just kind of take us through the season.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, we have a storied program, especially at the D2 era. We've won national championships in Division II as well. So for us to get there this year as a Division I program was something very special. Troy is, as an athletic department as a whole, has not been to a national championship. So this was the first time in, Troy's Division I history as well. The whole year was special. When the guys arrived on campus back in August, we, I put up on my whiteboard that this is our year. And that's something that stayed up there the whole year. I think I just erased it last week. We knew with the guys that we had on the team, our seniors, our senior leadership, the way they played on the golf course, we knew we could make it pretty far. And, I was thinking conference championship, make it to regionals, and then see what happens. And it was our time to make it through regionals and get to the national championship. And that was just so special for the guys. They earned it. They worked so hard. And I've said this before, but every team works hard. This team works harder, I would say. And just the guys that were on the team, and our whole team was player led, I would say. And all the best teams are player led. You got guys holding each other accountable, saying, if on an off day nobody's practicing, they're calling guys to come practice and go play. So it was a pretty special year.
This was your second year kind of guiding the program. When you got, and you've got a little bit of a Southern background, from Meridian, played at Meridian Community College, spent a year at the now defunct Birmingham Southern.
How'd you find that? I'm just kidding.
How did you kind of end up at Birmingham Southern, and then are you the reason for its demise, or what?
I don't guess so. I only spent a year there, and then transferred to Mississippi State where I finished up. But I hope not. I surely hope not. I think that was more like a financial decisions on their part. But
yeah,
I really don't know. That was pretty sad to see.
What What was it like in your 1 year at Birmingham Southern?
It was good. I went there because the coach, Jason Buha, he had won on the Corn, or what now is the Corn Ferry Tour. He was a really good player. He played at Duke. He was an outstanding player for Duke. So I mainly went there for him, to play for him and all that. But I love my time there. I knew a few guys that were already there. So yeah, like I said, just spent a year there. And the only reason I left was because I was studying accounting, and they did away with the whole accounting program. So it's like one day I got a letter from the school, and it just said like, "Hey, we know you're studying accounting, but we're doing away with the program for this upcoming year. Just letting you know." So I was like, "Well, I'm already 3 years into it. I got to keep going somewhere." So transferred to Mississippi State and walked on the golf team there, and kind of finished up my college career there.
Well, how did you like things over at State?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was great. Had a house in the Cotton District right there, kind of in the middle of everything. My first year I didn't play. I contacted the Coach Homan there and trying to walk on the team, but his team was already full. And then my last year at Mississippi State, he gave me a chance to walk on, and I will forever be grateful for that. And I walked on the team. My teammates were, Chad Ramey, who's won on the PGA Tour, some other guys right now that are playing the tour as well. Matt Fass had just left there, and he's coaching now, but he's played on the Corn Ferry Tour, so they were a really good program. And I was fortunate enough to walk on, played a lot that spring season, and then my final tournament there was the 2012 SEC Championship at Sea Island, and a guy by the name of Justin Thomas won by, I think it was like 6 shots or something like that, as a freshman. And that was the moment I knew I wanted to get into coaching and and not go the pro route. So
we're going to ask that question here before we get into that. Getting to play Old Waverly is not a bad gig either, is it?
Oh, absolutely. I love that place.
Yeah.
Being from Meridian, we were only an hour and 20 minutes from it. So I grew up playing in different tournaments there. I used to take lessons from VJ Trolio and Tim Yelverton up there. And I've always loved just kind of, driving through the gates, pulling up to that clubhouse. And it's a fun golf course. It's a great golf course. We played at Mississippi State's event, back in the spring. They're redoing Mossy Oak right now, so they moved the tournament to Old Waverly, and we played great. We finished behind Ole Miss and Alabama, and we actually tied Mississippi State. So, lot of good memories there for sure.
Yeah.
Where did you play growing up around Meridian? I'm a little bit familiar with Mississippi golf, and I'm not sure I know too many courses around Meridian.
Yeah, so there's 2 country clubs in Meridian, Northwood and Briarwood. We mainly played at Northwood Country Club. The head pro there was Jimmy Gamblin. For many years, he was there for a long time. Retired probably back in 2011 or 12, something like that. But he's the one that mainly taught me the game of golf. My mom got me into the game, and he kind of taught it to me. So my mom was a good player for the University of Alabama back in the day. But, we grew up playing in Northwood. My granddad lived on number 10 out there. So my brother and I, who also played, he played at Ole Miss, actually. We would go and, spend the night at my grandfather's house, wake up, play golf, go swimming at the pool, and kind of rinse and repeat. So, we were there every day.
How was the house divided between Ole Miss and Mississippi State? I mean, that's like Alabama Auburn over here.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think like growing up, we were kind of just Alabama fans because my mom played golf there. So that was kind of natural to us. we didn't grow up like as Mississippi State, Ole Miss fans, so that rivalry wasn't quite as deep, I would say. And golfers were kind of like rooting for each other at some point. And he was my brother, so he had a good career at Ole Miss. Played for Ernest Ross over there, and his teammate was Jonathan Randolph, who's been on the PGA Tour, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, as far as rivalry, there wasn't that much, I would say.
When how does a numbers guy, an accountant, get into coaching, and how does it help you coach?
Helps on the budget side for sure. No, I mean, I don't know. I kind of picked something to study, and I was always kind of good at numbers and having an organization of things, so it just kind of made sense for me. And I feel like a lot of golfers maybe are accountants, and I knew it would help out in the business world no matter what I chose to do. So just kind of went that route.
I went easy. I went for the easy major, like journalism and broadcasting. Man, I didn't.
Nice.
there were not people nightmares about their accounting classes.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was tough for sure. But I somehow made it through it, and it helps me, a little bit, but not as much as I thought it would.
On the budget side, I mean, don't they just give you a blank check down there at Troy?
That's what we're working towards, Greg. That's what we're working towards. We're not quite there yet. This past year was a good step in that direction.
Yeah. You make it, start making it every year, and money will start flowing.
Yeah, for sure. We've already, we've seen an uptick of, donations here and there, but especially on the recruiting side. When we got done with the national championship, our inboxes were, flooded with guys from, kind of all over the country. We get a lot of recruiting emails regardless, but, once you start looking these kids up, you're kind of like, oh, like he's a little bit better player. He's from, this area, stuff like that. So we saw a good uptick in recruiting, for sure, that of guys that were reaching out to us.
So it's interesting that you played at Birmingham Southern. It's not a really big school, and then playing at Mississippi State, bigger D1, more resources. I would say Troy's kind of a little bit above the middle of that, but kind of in the middle. Talk a little bit about what kind of players are you looking for right now, and how these new rules affecting your recruiting and your roster.
Yeah, for sure. Well, coming to Troy, I knew we could recruit at a high level. Mm-hmm. We have a fantastic facility that's on campus, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But as far as recruiting, my number one goal was to win the state first. So to come in, get some top ranked kids from Alabama, and then just kind of branch out from there. And I have some connections to Texas as well. I coached at Rice for 5 years over there. So when I came in, sorry, my light just went out.
Oh, you're good.
There we go. Yeah. So I came in, and there was a highly ranked Texas kid that I called up that hadn't committed anywhere. So I brought him in, and then picked up a good player from Birmingham as well. But yeah, I would say my main goal was to win the state of Alabama, and then branch out from there and kind of see who we could get, in the Southeast and stuff like that. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that for sure. This past recruiting class, we signed 2 top 100 kids in the country. And, that's going to help us kind of fill in the spots of the guys that, just graduated from the national championship team. So we'll bring those guys in, develop them the same way that, those guys came in as freshmen 4 years ago and, made it to a national championship this year. So the process kind of starts over for those guys, but we'll still continue to work hard to develop those guys.
What do you when you're out on the recruiting trail? What are you looking for?
Yeah, for sure. So if we're watching you, you're probably pretty good. So like we'll look you up. We look up rankings and scoring and stuff like that. So if we show up to watch you, we already know that you can put some scores together, that your rankings good enough to kind of be where we're at recruiting wise. Then we're kind of looking at your how you act on the golf course, how you interact with the guys you're playing with, how you interact with your parents. It's just all the small details about that, just to see if you'll be a good fit for our program. Um, so I would say when we show up, we're looking for small details like that. We're not necessarily, I don't care if you play bad. I kind of want to see, how you react when things aren't going your way. And just things like that. If you make a double, I want to see how you react. How do you put the pin back in the hole? Are you slamming it in the hole? Are you, just kind of going to the next hole, not caring? So little things like that add up. And, we want to be with a kid. We want to recruit a kid that we want to be around for 4 years, kind of deal. So, if you're going out there, shooting 66 and 67s, that's great, but does it fit with our culture here at Troy? Are you going to be a good teammate? Stuff like that. So our job is to find a combination of those two.
It's interesting. We've had some other coaches on, and I would say, Clay, that's a pretty common thing is how they interact with, particularly their parents.
Sure.
You out going to a lot of tournaments this summer?
Yeah, we got a recruiting schedule lined up of about probably four junior tournaments, I would say. Tomorrow is the start of the state junior for Alabama. It's at Wind Lakes down in Montgomery for you guys, up in Montgomery for us. So we'll go out there, and we got a few guys that have committed that are playing in the field already. So we'll go watch them, and then see if we can find any 2027 kids and 2028 kids. And then let's see, we got the Future Masters coming up. That's always a big tournament for us. That tournament draws a crowd from all over the country, so we'll be there, all 3 days.
And a lot of coaches too, right?
A lot of coaches, yeah, for sure, for sure. So it's a good tournament for us to be at, every year, every day kind of deal. And then in July we're going to Tuscaloosa for that AJGA at Indian Hills over there. It's already got a pretty good field as well, so we'll do that, and then we recruited the state am a little bit for some of the younger guys that were playing.
So you're basically 27, 28. You're already thinking about those guys.
For sure, you kind of have to be, in this profession. So yesterday was June 15th, and that was the first day that we could contact the 2027 kids. The NCAA came out with that, I think, back in 2019 or something like that. Just kind of the new recruiting rules. So June 15th, before the start of your junior year, is when coaches can kind of contact you. And then August 1st is the first day that they can visit campus and meet with the coaches. So
how many texts and phone calls did you make yesterday?
Not as much as like football or baseball, but it was a good 10 plus for sure.
Well, besides the program, which obviously has elevated, what's the selling point for you to come to Troy? Because it's not exactly, a big metropolitan area with a lot to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it kind of goes back to the facility. You can get better here at Troy. You can turn pro here from Troy. We have 6 holes that are on campus. We have, TrackMan, GC Quad. We have hitting bays, indoor putting. Our clubhouse is 6,000 square feet. We have a men's and women's locker room. We just got 4 brand new golf carts that the guys can use at the facility. Our driving range is awesome. So we can develop guys here. We can turn guys into professionals from here. Brantley Scott, who just graduated, just went through PGA Tour America's qualifying at the RTJ Highlands down in Dothan, and I think he finished seventh. So he earned his full PGA Tour America's card, and that's just kind of a testament because he's from Rehoboth, Alabama, you know, just outside Dothan, and now he's a professional golfer about to go on tour up in Canada. And it's awesome. And this place kind of did it. He was a good junior player, but he developed into a really good college player being here at Troy. Same thing with Jake Springer. Jake came in, and he'll tell you this, straight to your face. He wasn't a very good, golfer as a freshman, but he, committed to developing his game, committed to this facility, committed to Troy, and he's this past year he won twice in college at pretty good fields. So it's just kind of a testament to what we offer here at Troy, and that you can get better being here.
Given the new landscape, though, how much do you have to re-recruit your guys
For sure.
every year?
Yeah, and that's just something we got to deal with. But I kind of made a point this year to have like open communication about it. So kind of every other week I'm like, hey, like, you still liking it here? Everything going good? You're not having any thoughts of hopping in the transfer portal, are you? Kind of deal. So, and nobody left, which was great. And it helps that you play good as well. Making it to the national championship kind of proved to everybody that, we can do it here. So, retention is a lot better when you play well, I would say.
Absolutely. So what was kind of the mood like? You guys went up to the Urbana regional going in. I mean, did you just embrace an underdog role, or I don't think anybody would have said Troy's going to get out of this regional, especially in today's landscape.
100%. We took that attitude. We're a blue collar school for sure, and we got to take that blue collar mentality. We don't have the nicest things. We don't do all that, but we kind of, dig it out of the dirt, as you would say, and we're going to come up there and beat you, kind of deal. And like the thing that I think really helped us is we didn't change anything that got us there. We didn't meet and say like, all right, guys, like this is regionals, it's time to lock in. No, like we did that the whole year. So it was just kind of an extension of what we already had been doing that made us successful. And one common thing or theme that we did all year was we played tough golf courses really, really well. We played in tough conditions really well. We played long, hard golf courses really well. And it just kind of culminated at Adkins Golf Club. The golf course was 7,600 yards. The rough was thick, 4.5, 5 inches. The greens were tough. They were fast, undulated. And the wind actually blew a little bit more than we had anticipated. So it was kind of the combination of everything that we had already seen all year that we had been successful on. And we knew we could get it done. We knew we could do it. So I think the belief as well is what kind of got us, pushes over the edge.
Were you guys, could you see the pressure kind of building, like going into the final round, to where, okay, it's kind of, today we play well, we're going to the national championship?
Yeah, a little bit. It's quiet at dinner or at breakfast, and guys are kind of leaving to go stretch on their own and stuff like that. So you could kind of get that vibe, but it's kind of our job as coaches to lift the air and keep them free and whatnot. One thing that I think really helped us that final round, there was a 30-minute fog delay that morning. So it gave us, a little bit longer time to kind of prepare, hit putts, get comfortable with the surroundings again. So I really think, kind of subconsciously that helped us out a lot, for sure. But I mean, again, like our job as coaches is to keep everything free, keep everything light, and just pour confidence into these players that they can go out and do it.
So
Yeah.
you get through, you qualify for the national championship. You got there, you had a pretty good first day, given at La Costa, and you
Yeah.
didn't get through to match play. But what was that whole experience like? And did you guys come back disappointed? Did you come back, all right, this kind of set the tone for future teams, or what?
Yeah, I think it definitely just set the tone for the future. Nobody was disappointed. We, accomplished our goal of getting to a national championship. We made a big trip out of it. So the practice round started on a Friday. We went to California the previous Monday. We have a guy on the team that was from just outside of LA. So we went to his house, played his golf course, played golf in the surrounding area, made a big trip out of it. And then Thursday, when we could check into the resort in Carlsbad, we drove down from LA. That night, I think we went to the TPI facility, Titleist Performance Institute,
Mm-hmm.
and man, it was unbelievable. They had food, and the guys were trying putters, and they gave us golf balls and gloves and all this stuff. So I would say we soaked it all in, right? We accomplished the goal of being there. Obviously we wanted to bring our A games, and we wanted to play and get in that top 15 and, have a chance for match play. But at the end of the day, we were there playing with those guys on the same golf course. The top 30 teams in the country, make it to the national championship, and we were one of those teams. So, nobody was disappointed. Nobody was sad. It was, we made it kind of deal. And then, after that, it's like, hey, looking to the future, you guys, set this precedent now. We know we can do it. Kind of, it was kind of a thank you. Thank you for proving to everybody, proving to Troy that we can do this.
Tell us a little bit about La Costa, the golf course. How difficult was it?
I mean, the greens were tough. It was long. It was so hard. It was really, really hard. And if you look at it on the scorecard, the course rating was close to 78. The yardage was close to, I think it tips at 75, 7,600. Off the tee, it really wasn't that bad. You could put the ball in play. It was mainly just, second shots and around the green that was just brutally tough. The greens were so undulated that if you missed, in a bad spot, you were, basically just trying to hit the green from that chip shot. It looks, looking at it on TV, you're like, oh, this place isn't that bad. But you get out there, and when you have to hit some of those shots, it's really, really, really tough.
When you're setting up your schedule, do you kind of look at the different parts of the country where regionals might be, and try to go play, not those courses, but go to California and play, because it's different grasses, different style, different conditions than down here?
Yeah, sometimes. I think with the schedule, you just try to set your team up for success, and it's got to be a mixture of really good tournaments, and then tournaments that you can go out there and win for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like we think we can win every tournament, but you got to kind of set your expectations when you're making the schedule, and also like what you can get into. So I'll try to get into a tournament, but it might be full. So you kind of go down to option B. But I think I was looking at our spring schedule for next year for spring 2026, and we'll be in 6 different states. So I think that's we're getting out, we're traveling. The guys are getting good experiences on the road, playing different golf courses, playing good golf courses. So I think that's more important, I think, than trying to match a golf course up with a regional course or the national championship course. As long as the student athletes are getting a good experience and we're traveling and we're doing all these things, then we'll be fine.
When the regional sites or when the regional pairings came out, did you think you were going to Auburn or Florida State, and was it a surprise you were sent to Urbana?
That's a great question. Auburn was probably on the last, it was the last on our list, I would say. We did not want to go to Auburn. Some of our guys had played that golf course, really hard golf course. We knew it was going to be a tough regional. We did not want to go there. Plus, it was only, kind of felt like a home game, like only an hour and a half away. So the guys kind of determined, like, if we want to go somewhere, we want to go somewhere. Tallahassee was probably number one, I would say. We have two guys who were members at Seminole Legacy, and that would have, benefited us, hindsight 2020, but that would have benefited us pretty well. And then I think Atkins was maybe our third or fourth kind of deal. We didn't want to go to Seattle. That was pretty far down there. And then Reno would have been fun to go to. So we had it maybe, kind of the 3 or 4 spot. And then Virginia, it was probably that 5th spot, I would say. But we got really lucky going to Atkins. I think we had the best weather of all the regionals. And, we didn't have any delays other than that one fog delay. And, even the field set up for us. It was a really strong field, but we saw the teams that were in it. We were like, oh, we can beat these guys. We had seen Houston, previously in the season, and we had beaten them and stuff like that. So we knew for a fact, we can make it through when all that came out.
After seeing in retrospect, Reno was not the place you wanted to go, given those conditions.
Correct. Yeah, it was like 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, it was brutal monitoring that, just seeing those conditions out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though it's a great part of the country to go to.
Yeah, we were thinking like Lake Tahoe, Reno, like that would have been cool to go to, but yeah. Now looking back on it, I'm glad we didn't get didn't go.
How much? Sorry, Chris. How much? A lot of the mid majors, lower majors rely on international players to come in. You've got a couple on your roster. How does that factor in to your recruiting?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we do look everywhere. And like you said, we have Pablo Gracia now. He's from Spain. Came in as a freshman. Really good ball striker, really good player. I think it just kind of depends on the year, if the talent in the Southeast isn't, kind of what it historically has been, then we'll go international and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's tough. Like, it's hard to get to Troy for sure. And it just kind of depends on the year, I would say. Yeah. It just depends.
Yeah. Chris, you had something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the NCAA has kind of made Costa the home place for a while, right?
Correct.
And so I think that's kind of cool because everybody will get to kind of make a trip out. But you mentioned TPI. I'd like to revisit a little bit of that. That's a pretty cool place. Manufacturers there in the Carlsbad area with some really cool facilities. Did you get a chance to go to any others, and anything else you want to share about your visit to TPI?
Yeah. So I know TaylorMade's kind of in that area. We didn't make it up there. Like I said, TPI and Titleist, they kind of hosted all the teams. They kind of brought us out in increments, I would say. So we were like the 5:30 to 6:30 group. But there were still a lot of teams there, and man, that place there was not a blade of grass out of place. The club fitting room, we got a tour kind of the whole area, and the club fitting room was amazing. The clubhouse where the pros can kind of hang out and stuff, it's got big screen TVs and just couches and snacks and drinks everywhere. And then you just step out on the back patio and it's just the most perfect grass you've ever seen. And then looking out like towards the driving range, they have holes kind of on the perimeter of the driving range, and pros can kind of go out there and hit different shots, and all the greens are like real greens. You're not just hitting to like a practice green. So it was cool. And it was, kind of at sunset, and, it was, I don't know, it was awesome. The guys loved it. Titleist gave us all a t-shirt and golf balls and gloves and everything. And everybody was so inviting. They had putters on the putting green and like a putting course set up that the guys could, try different putters and stuff like that. So it was a really good experience for our guys.
That's really cool.
And for the coach.
Yeah.
And for the coach, yeah. They had one left-handed putter, so I was happy about that.
Did you kind of foresee yourself becoming a golf coach? And how much input do you have with your players as far as mechanics and fundamentals?
Yeah, for sure. I've had a lot of people in my life that were coaches. I grew up without a father. My parents divorced when I was 2. So I've kind of leaned on my coaches, kind of as father figures, and I knew that I could be in that position one day. One guy that, really has had an impact on my life is Sean Kovich. I played for him at Meridian Community College, and he's the one that reached out to me about the Rice job. He was like, Clay, like this Rice job's open. It's a good entry-level assistant coaching job. He was like, well, you got to move to Houston, Texas from Meridian, but it's a good way to kind of get in the coaching world. Really good Division I mid-major program. And then, going out there, I got the job. Going out there working for, Coach Emil was great. He's a great coach. He's been at Rice for a long time. I was there for 5 years, and then Sean called me. He was like, hey, my assistant's leaving. Do you want to come coach with me at WVU? And I was like, heck yeah, sign me up. So, picked up from Houston. We had just had our second child. So it was tough moving from Houston all the way across country to Morgantown, West Virginia. But we got settled in at WVU, and Sean's one of my best friends, and we had 4 great years together, won a bunch, and they made it to a national championship the year after I left. They made it, which was really cool to see because it was all those guys that we had developed and coached and stuff like that. And then the Troy job, came open. Had no idea about it. I was recruiting in Dallas for WVU, and I looked down and I had an email from Brent Jones, the AD here, and I was like, "Oh, Troy! Like they have a solid program." I'd always driven through here, playing, going to Dothan to play the Future Master, so I knew where it was. And then started talking to Brent. They brought me out. They brought me here to Troy, and kind of the rest is, we're here now. So
yeah.
That's
Did
kind of.
You know Brent before he reached out to you?
Nope, had no idea. Had no idea. So he actually, it was funny. He emailed me, and I wrote him back like very quickly, and he said that was one of the almost the determining factor of whether we were going to bring somebody in for an interview or not, was how quick that they replied to the email. So I thought that was interesting. And then I was flying back from Dallas, recruiting, and I was going through security and stuff like that. You know how you have to put all your stuff in the bins. Well, I had just gotten my bin from out of the security line, and like my phone was ringing in the bin, and it was Brent Jones, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta grab it." And we talked for until my plane left, so a good hour and a half or so. But no, it was cool. I mean, it was the whole process getting here to Troy was great. So we, my family settled in. We bought a house, gotten plugged into everything. So this coaching journey has been really fun.
How did you get on Brent's radar?
So they scoured the country, and I'm pretty sure contacted or looked up like 80 coaches. He said, just different assistants, different head coaches at different levels, and stuff like that. And I think what stood out to Brent, he told me, was that I've kind of been at every level. So, obviously, played JUCO at Meridian, played D3 at Birmingham Southern, walked on to Division I school, and then I was the grad assistant at Mississippi State, so I kind of had that experience. Then, got the coaching job at Rice. I stayed for 5 years, which is kind of a long time to stay in one spot for an assistant. And then, went to WVU, coached in a Power 5 school in the Big 12. So I think he kind of liked that I had been to different, different groups and, kind of different programs and stuff like that. So, I don't know. And I put on my resume that I like fishing and hunting. So that fit pretty well into Troy's atmosphere as well. So
Nobody ever puts on their resume they like playing golf, though.
That's true. I think that's a given.
How much do you get to play?
I wish I played more. I really do. I'm about to buy a new set of irons, so hopefully that'll help me play more. I've had my same set since 2016. But I probably play or have played this year 3 times, 4 times maybe. I have 3 kids, 3 boys, and when I'm not coaching and traveling, I'm there, at the house being a dad. So playing for me is a rare occasion, but I still love to play. I love to play. So hopefully, get a new set of irons and try to commit to playing a little bit more.
How old are the boys?
My boys are 4, 6, and 8 right now.
Maybe you can start playing. They'll start playing together.
100%. Yeah. So we actually signed up for a family scramble in July.
Cool.
Like early part of July at Troy Country Club. So I'm trying to ease them into the game a little bit.
I think the common denominator between all coaches that we've had on here is they don't get to play enough. Gator Todd plays a couple times a year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Matt Terry would. I'm sure Matt gets out there and plays more than
he probably plays every day.
Probably. But yeah. he wasn't at the national championship this year either. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
He sent me a great text after we qualified, and he's a good friend, and I love Matt. But he was like, Clay, you've done something that we never could do, and I thought that was pretty cool. So, we'll see him at Squire Creek in September when we go to his tournament.
Yep.
So he's a good guy.
We had him on, and I think if we hadn't cut him off, he'd still be telling stories.
Oh yeah, no doubt. He probably still thinks he's on.
So, what clubs are you buying? Titleist?
Yeah, Titleist. Yeah, right now I have the AP2s, the 16 model, so they're pretty old. I'm probably going to get some wedges too, so I need a little bit of an upgrade. They still look brand new, but it's time for some new ones.
If you're only playing a few times a year, the sweet spot is not wore out.
Yes, 100%.
So what's kind of the future for Troy Golf coming up?
Yeah, so we signed 4 pretty talented guys, 2 of whom are in the top 100. So they'll start in August. We'll move them in and kind of hit the ground running with qualifying and practice and all that. And we're bringing back Lee Popple and Pablo Gracia, who were on the national championship team. So they'll bring some experience. They'll be juniors. So they're moving to that like upperclassman leadership role. And then we're, bringing back 2 sophomores, that one kid from Texas I was talking about, Grant Yerger, and then Pierce Becker, who we redshirted this past year. He's from Birmingham. But we're super excited about our freshman class coming in. Thomas Crane, who you guys may know, he's down in Mobile. Really, really good player. And then we got Landon Noble coming in from Georgia, another top-ranked kid. And then we got we got brothers coming from Birmingham, Lawton Emblem and Haston Emblem. So they're both solid players as well. So excited about these guys, but we're going to be a young team. We're going to have to develop these guys and really teach them a lot about college golf and stuff like that. But we're excited to do that and coach them up.
Do you look at the portal at all, or?
Yeah, for sure. I think you have to in this day and age, and we're actually trying to get a portal kid. So with the new house rules, we can be a roster limit of 9, and right now we're at 8. So we have room to add one more. So we just got to determine, who's that going to be and stuff like that. But yeah, so we're definitely looking at the portal. And like I said, I think you kind of have to in this day and age. You never know.
Is it preferential, or do you enjoy bringing the kids in as freshmen? And today's juniors are play at such a high level. When I got to college ages ago, man, I was not ready for college golf at all. But now when they play all these AJGAs, the future mass, I mean, it's almost like playing mini college golf, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the juniors are very good players right now. And my coaching philosophy is kind of to bring them in from high school and then develop them and kind of see where we can get them to by their senior year. And that's a pretty good way to do things. And I want to bring a kid in who loves Troy, wants to stay here for 4 years, and stuff like that. So I mean, the portal is what it is, kind of deal. But I personally, I love bringing high school guys in, developing a good relationship with them, and developing their golf games to eventually turn pro or meet whatever goals they have.
So we can expect you back at La Costa next year, right? Next spring.
We certainly will try. We certainly will try. I mean, it was an amazing special year for sure. And at the end of the year, we could look back and say, "Hey, we met all of our goals," kind of deal. And like I said, I just erased our year up there on the whiteboard. It was crazy. It was our year. So now I got to come up with something new for this upcoming year.
Got to be witty.
Yeah, something like new beginnings or stuff like that. Well, here's what I want to focus on. I don't want the guys to focus on last year. I want them to look forward. I don't want to have to rely on everything we did last year. It was great. We did it, but now it's time to work towards getting back there in the future. So I kind of want to have that mindset of, this is the work that it took to get there. Let's keep doing that to get there in the future.
Yeah. Kind of like playing golf. Whether you have a good hole or a bad hole, that's in the past. You got to focus on what you're playing right now.
100%. 100%.
I think, when you look, it may have been a surprise nationally that Troy ended up at the NCAA Men's Championship. But when you are here in the state, I mean, college golf in Alabama right now is as good as it's ever been. When you look at Jacksonville State, South Alabama, North Alabama, of course, Alabama and Auburn. So I don't think it was a surprise to anybody locally that you guys can go compete, or any of the Jacksonville State's been to regionals. So
yeah, very good program.
And that in turn, I mean, you guys are battling for a lot of the same kids too in recruiting.
For sure. I mean, the state of Alabama has really good college teams. Really good. I mean, you got the number 1 team right up the road in Auburn. Alabama, I think they ended the year, not how they wanted to, but they were still in the top 15. UNA had a solid year. Like you said, Jacksonville State had a solid year. South Alabama has some really good players. So, man, I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. Really good teams, and like you said, like I had people coming up to me like, "Where's Troy? Like, who are y'all?" Kind of deal. When we were, in Illinois and in California, but the people who are around Troy and in Alabama know who Troy are, and kind of what we stand for and stuff like that. So, we made a lot of fans in Illinois for sure. A lot of the scorers and a lot of just random people would come up and say, "Hey guys, like we're rooting for Troy, like we're rooting for you guys." So that was pretty cool to kind of make that connection with them, and it was just so special.
Cool.
Well, great, Chris. You got anything?
No, Clay, it was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on and stopping by the Cart Barn and sharing some of your information about Troy and what you got going on. And we just wish you and the Trojans a successful year this coming year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys so much.
Well, again, we want to thank Clay Bounce for taking time to talk a little bit about Troy golf. Chris, as we've talked about before on the podcast, college golf on the Division I level in Alabama is in a really good spot right now across the board. It's not just Alabama and Auburn. It's South Alabama, it's Troy, it's Jacksonville State, UNA. So again, it's good to see Troy back on the national scene, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And teeing up next week's podcast, we've got a very interesting guest. Tell everyone a little bit about John.
Yeah, we've got John Morton from Birmingham. He's kind of a golf historian, collects memorabilia, deals in some collecting books, and he's got some fascinating stuff. He's collected across the years and just so knowledgeable about early golf. We're talking 1800s golf, so it's I hope people will tune in and listen because he's got some fascinating stories to tell.
Very fascinating stuff I didn't know anything about. Still very much a novice when it comes to some of the stuff that he's collecting. I had no idea that the stuff even existed. But hopefully everyone will enjoy that next week. Again, just don't forget to check us out on YouTube. This podcast is growing, and thanks to you, the listeners. And if there's something that you like, share it with somebody that you know that plays golf or that has an interest in the game. That's how we continue to grow. And also, shameless plug, check us out on YouTube. Cart Barn Podcast on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up and a like and a share. It would help us a lot.
It really would. And again, yeah, we do appreciate everybody that has been faithfully listening every week, and get your friends to join us. It's just a conversation about golf.
Yep. Well, till next week, thanks again for tuning in to the Cart Barn Podcast. We'll catch you next week for another episode.